truth about the farm boys I killed in their place. And the truth about Sir Roderick, who I beheaded. And the truth about Rob, who I betrayed.
When you take the black, all your crimes are forgiven.
I don't want to be forgiven. I can never make amends to your family for the things I've done.
Hello, my sweet summer children. I'm back with some juice to get you through the long night. So today I decided to talk about a character that doesn't get as much love as everyone else. In the midst of all the Jon and Dany and Sansa fanatical hero shit, I started to think how important some other characters are and just how much they are slept on by the fandom and the critical roles they could play in the wars to come. So I analyzed a lot of them, and I'm going to start with the Prince of Winterfell, Theon Greyjoy.
Theon?
It's Prince Theon now.
Theon gets so much shit because of his past mistakes, and so many people hate him, but he seems to be another character that has a redemption arc. Just like the Hound, just like Jaime Lannister. Is our hate of Theon justified? Has he paid for his betrayals? And what exactly could he do to make you love him? Or to make you at least empathize with him? So let's try to understand what George R.R. Martin and Dan and Dave have planned for Theon of House Greyjoy. I think I know what's going to happen with Theon in Season 8, so let me explain. So Theon gives us plenty of reasons not to like him, but put your feelings aside and put yourself in his shoes. Theon is the son of Balon Greyjoy. 9 years before the start of Game of Thrones, there was another rebellion. This time, it was the Greyjoy Rebellion. Greyjoy Rebellion was a farce that House Greyjoy could not hope to win. The rebellion was squashed out when Robert Baratheon and Ned Stark linked up and ended the rebellion with the Siege of Pike. Both of Theon's brothers, Roderick and Meryn, were killed, and Balon's last son and heir was 9-year-old Theon Greyjoy. He was given over to Ned Stark as ward or captive to ensure Balon's good behavior. In the end, Balon bent the knee, just like everyone else, and Theon was sent to Winterfell.
First time I saw Winterfell, it looked like something that had been here for thousands of years, and would be here for thousands of years after I was dead. I saw it and I thought, poor Ned Stark crushed our rebellion and killed my brothers. We never stood a chance against the man who lives here.
Theon is raised with Ned Stark's own children, and at the start of Game of Thrones, he has lived in Winterfell for 9 years as a captive of war. He's older than Jon and Robb. He's 19 years old and confused about his place in the world. Yes, the Starks were nice to him, but everyone he comes in contact with loves to remind him that he's not a Stark and he is, in fact, a prisoner.
The lady is our guest.
Thought she was our prisoner.
Are the two mutually exclusive in your experience?
We find out later that Theon actually wants to be a Stark. My lady, why do you hate the Starks? She studied him. For the same reason you love them. Theon stumbled. Love them? I never. I took this castle from them, my lady. I had Bran and Rickon put to death, mounted their heads on spikes. I rode south with Robb Stark, fought beside him at the Whispering Wood and River Run, returned to the Iron Islands as his envoy to treat with your own father. Barrowtown sent men with the young wolf as well. I gave him as few men as I dared, but I knew that I must needs give him some or risk the wrath of Winterfell. So I had my own eyes and ears in that host. They kept me well informed. I know who you are. I know what you are. Now answer my question. Why do you love the Starks? Theon put a gloved hand against the pillar. I wanted to be one of them. Theon did want to be a Stark, but he was constantly reminded that he wasn't one.
They attacked your father. They've already started the war. It's your duty to represent your house when your father can't.
And it's not your duty, because it's not your house.
He was a Greyjoy. But at 9, do you really know what it means to be a Greyjoy? At 19, do you know what it means to be a Greyjoy? I don't think Theon did know what that meant. When Theon rides south with Robb, he has every intention of keeping faith with his brother, keeping faith with Robb and House Stark. Robb entrusts Theon to go and treat with his father. This is a mistake that Catelyn tries to warn Robb against, but Robb trusts that Theon is a Stark. But Theon doesn't even know what Theon is. Theon hasn't had contact with any of his family in the Iron Islands. He thinks his homecoming is going to be a grand one, and everyone is going to be at the docks to hail their prince's homecoming, but it does not happen this way. No one knows who he is or cares. So not only has he been reminded that he's not a Stark, he comes home after being a prisoner of war for 9 years expecting this happy homecoming, and his family treats him like an outsider.
You gave me away! Your boy! Your last boy! You gave me away like I was some dog you didn't want anymore! And now you curse me because I've come home!
Theon is searching for approval. Approval that he never gets from the Starks. Approval and confirmation from someone. Approval he hoped to get from his father, but not before an internal struggle. He does not know what to do. He wants to warn Robb. He should warn Robb, but he doesn't. And he decides he's going to be a Greyjoy and forsake everything that he is to be one. He's having an identity crisis, and his karma comes, and it's endless suffering at the hands of Ramsay Bolton. And in case you haven't read the books, his torment is much worse in the books. It doesn't take Theon long to realize that he chose wrong. When he chooses his own house over House Stark, he almost immediately realizes that he chose wrong. The contrast between Theon, Jaime, and the Hound is that Jaime doesn't become humbled until after he loses his hand. The Hound has to go through a whole lot of shit before he realizes how fucked up he is. But Theon almost immediately realizes he's fucked up and chose wrong, and this happens before he starts to be tortured and mutilated. Theon suffers unimaginable torment, both physically and psychologically. He doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know what his purpose is. He's a shell of the person that we met in season 1. But let's move into where his story is going and not where it's been for so long. So at the end of season 5, Theon manages to help Sansa escape Winterfell.
I would have taken you all the way to the wall. I would have died to get you there.
So in the books, his story is completely different. First off, Sansa isn't in Winterfell. Jane Poole is in Winterfell, and she is being passed off as a fake Arya Stark. This fake Arya Stark, Jane Poole, is the one that Theon gives away to marry Ramsay Bolton. So Stannis is on his way to Winterfell. So I'm going to be talking about the Winds of Winter, and so there will be Winds of Winter book spoilers. So just an FYI, the Greyjoy storyline is very different in the books, but I believe it will end in the same place. The mere fact that the Kingsmoot happened way before the show actually got around to doing it lets me know they realized they had no choice but to do it. So they went back and did it. It means the Greyjoys have an important part to play. It's also worth mentioning that Theon wasn't there. Theon was not at the Kingsmoot. The whole Theon and Yara going to Daenerys never happens in the books. That is reserved for another character, another brother of Baelon, Victarion, who is not on the show. He's on his way to Daenerys. He's just arrived at Slaver's Bay. But let's just focus on the main thread in the Winds of Winter chapter. It's Theon's chapter. So in the books, when Theon tries to escape with the fake Arya, he ends up in Stannis' camp outside of Winterfell. He is now Stannis' prisoner. Unchain me, and I will serve you, as you served Roose Bolton and Robb Stark, Stannis snorted. I think not. We have a warmer end in mind for you, Turncloak, but not until we're done with you. He means to kill me. The thought was queerly comforting. Death did not frighten Theon Greyjoy. Death would mean an end to pain. Be done with me then, he urged the king. Take off my head and stick it on a spear. I slew Lord Eddard's sons. I ought to die, but do it quick. He is coming. So Stannis plans to kill Theon by fire, a sacrifice to the Red God. He plans to do this to win the faith of the Northern Lords. Now Stannis wants to give Theon a death by fire, but Yara proposes something else. And this something else has been foreshadowed, and Theon will be a sacrifice, but not by fire, or not to fire, but to ice. The Weirwoods. Now let me show you how this has been set up through chapter after chapter. Theon is a Greyjoy. House Greyjoy does not keep the old gods. Their god is the drowned god. Theon tries to disassociate himself with the Weirwood. The red leaves of the Weirwood were a blaze of flame among the green. Ned Stark's tree, he thought. And Stark's wood, Stark's castle, Stark's sword, Stark's gods. This is their place, not mine. I am a Greyjoy of Pike, born to paint a kraken on my shield and sail the great salt sea. Theon says this, but we know different. We know he wants to be a Stark. We know Ned Stark is a part of him, the man he considers his real father.
You never lost him. He's a part of you, just like he's a part of me.
Theon grew up in Winterfell. The old gods are no stranger to him. He spent many a days and many a nights in the Godswood of Winterfell. Important moments that Theon has had have happened in Winterfell's Godswood. In A Dance with Dragons, Theon finds himself in Winterfell's Godswood at the Heart Tree quite often, seeking the old gods. Is it the drowned gods you worship, Theon? Or is it the old ones? Maybe it's both. During the daylight hours, the steamy wood was often full of Northmen come to pray to the old gods. But at this hour, Theon Greyjoy found he had it all to himself. And in the heart of the wood, the Weirwood waited with its knowing red eyes. Theon stopped by the edge of the pool and bowed his head before its carved red face. Even here, he could hear the drumming, boom, doom, boom, doom, boom, doom, boom, doom, like distant thunder. The sound seemed to come from everywhere at once. The night was windless, the snow drifting straight down out of a cold black sky, yet the leaves of the heart tree were rustling his name. Theon, they seemed to whisper. Theon. A leaf drifted down from above, brushed his brow, and landed in the pool. It floated on the water, red, five-fingered like a bloody hand. Bran the Tree murmured. They know. The gods know. They saw what I did. And for one strange moment, it seemed as if it were Bran's face carved into the pale trunk of the Weirwood, staring down at him with eyes red and wise and sad. Theon believes that not only are the old gods speaking to him and saying his name, he believes he sees Bran's face in the tree. Now, Theon doesn't know anything about the three-eyed raven or Bran's relation to the Weirwoods, so he's not out of his mind and he's not seeing things. This has to be something he's actually seeing because it makes sense. So Bran is calling Theon's name as Theon prays to the old gods at the Heart Tree. So what does that mean? Well, it starts to come together in Theon's sample chapter in Winds of Winter. In the show, we know Bran is the three-eyed raven now. How does he communicate? With ravens and the Weirwoods. So while Stannis has Theon prisoner and is planning to burn him and give him to the god of fire, something happens. We have ravens talking while Stannis and Theon are talking, and these ravens are giving hella clues. Stannis is just talking about battle plans, but check this out. Bolton has blundered, the king declared. All he had to do was sit inside his castle whilst we starved. Instead, he has sent some portion of his strength forth to give us battle. His knights will be horsed, ours must fight afoot. His men will be well nourished, ours go into battle with empty bellies. It makes no matter. Sir Stupid, Lord Too Fat, the bastard, let them come. We hold the ground, and that I mean to turn to our advantage. The ground, said Theon. What ground? Here? This misbegotten tower? This wretched little village? You have no high ground here, no walls to hide beyond, no natural defenses. Yet, both ravens screamed in unison. Then one quirked, and the other muttered, "Tree, tree, tree." Now, at first, the ravens saying tree, tree, tree might not seem like much, but ravens usually repeat what they hear being said. No one says tree for the ravens to repeat it. Actually, most of the ravens repeat yet, yet after Stannis says yet. But one raven says tree, tree, tree. This one raven is likely being warged by Bran or the three-eyed raven. But it's what comes later that is the smoking gun. "Let me down," he pleaded, "just for a little while, then you can hang me up again." Stannis Baratheon looked at him but did not answer. "Tree," a raven cried. "Tree, tree, tree," the other bird said. "Theon," clear as day, as Asha came striding through the door. The ravens are saying tree, but one is saying Theon. Also, Asha is Yara. Yara is with Stannis. But anyway, so George is not adding what these ravens are squawking about for the fun of it. And check this quote out, because this is what's going to happen to Theon. "Theon is my mother's last living son. When his brothers died, it shattered her. His death will crush what remains of her, but I have not come to beg you for his life. Wise, I am sorry for your mother, but I do not spare the lives of turncloaks, this one especially. He slew 2 sons of Eddard Stark. Every Northman in my service would abandon me if I showed him any clemency. Your brother must die. Then do the deed yourself, your grace." The chill in Asha's voice made Theon shiver in his chains. "Take him out across the lake to the islet where the weirwood grows, and strike his head off with the sorcerer's sword you bear. That is how Eddard Stark would have done it. Theon slew Lord Eddard's son. Give him to Lord Eddard's gods, the old gods of the north. Give him to the tree." And suddenly there came a wild thumping as the maester's ravens hopped and flapped inside their cages, their black feathers flying as they beat against the bars with loud and raucous calls. "The tree," one squawked, the tree," whilst the second screamed only, "Theon, Theon, Theon." Theon Greyjoy smiled. "They know my name." Yara proposes that Stannis should give Theon to the Heart Tree, blood sacrifice, not by fire, but the old way. And when she suggests it, the ravens go crazy. They start hopping and flapping and saying, the tree, Theon, Theon, Theon. The ravens, which is likely Bran, want Theon fed to the tree. But why? Well, it's a win-win. One, Theon is miserable. He wants to die, basically. He does not fear death. It's an end of suffering. It's an end of pain. But also, blood sacrifice is what powers the Weirwoods. Blood is what makes Bran stronger. According to the visions that Bran has in A Dance with Dragons, the old ways were that people were sacrificed to the Weirwood. It seemed to be a common practice. Not only the children of the forest did this, but the first men as well. When the children worked their biggest spell ever, which was bringing down the Hammer of the Waters, it is said that they fed 1,000 captives to the Weirwoods, if not their own young. We have other examples of Bran needing blood. The whole Jojen paste thing seems to be a blood sacrifice. All the bones in the cave seems to hint at blood sacrifice. Benjen gives Bran squirrel blood to drink, and he takes it without a second thought or any kind of hesitation. Now, the importance of Theon being a sacrifice is Theon would not be your average sacrifice. Melisandre preaches of the power of king's blood.
But sometimes sacrifices must be made to ensure victory. I have shown you the power of king's blood.
And Maester Aemon also talks about the power of king's blood and how it was used previously in a ritual, possibly Summerhall. 2 kings to wake the dragon, the father first and then the son, so both die kings. The words had been muttered by one of the queen's men as Maester Aemon had cleaned his wounds. Jon had tried to dismiss them as his fever talking, but Aemon had demurred. There is power in a king's blood, the old maester had warned, and better men than Stannis have done worse things than this. Theon has king's blood. His father was the king of the Iron Islands. His blood dates back to the stuff of legend, the age of heroes, the Grey King. It is alleged that the Grey King walked into the sea to join the drowned god in his watery halls. which in my opinion could be considered a sacrifice to the gods. He basically sacrificed himself to the drowned god. He legit just wanted to be with them. He wasn't killed. He just wanted to be with his gods, which is kind of history repeating itself with Theon. But instead of the drowned god, it's the old god, because Theon is a Stark and a Greyjoy, a gold kraken and a grey direwolf.
You don't need to choose. You're a Greyjoy. And you're a Stark.
Without a doubt, I believe Theon in the show and in the books will eventually be fed to the Weirwood to boost Bran's power. However, I don't think he will be a captive when it is done. I think this will be an act of willing sacrifice to save not only Westeros, but everyone in the wars to come. That's the only way that some people will ever forgive Theon. And that's the only way he will ever forgive himself or be whole again and find peace. It's the only way his story will end with redemption and sacrifice.
Once he's dead, they never die!
But what do you think? As always, thanks for watching. Thanks to everyone that supports me on Patreon. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please click that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and join the Sweet Summer family. Okay, my sweet summer children, have a good day.